This is going to be my most updated Fulgore matchup chart. Let's go. Right off the bat, you'll notice here I already have my matchup numbers that are dedicated for Fulgore here. So he has 7-3 matchups that he absolutely dominates, 6-4 matchups that are in his favor, 5-5 matchups, of course, that I think are even. And then he has slightly disfavorable matchups, like 4.5, 5.5 kind of matchups. Very small, minuscule things that are in that match that are disadvantages towards Fulgore. And then even a 4-6 category where Fulgore does lose. So we're going to see a lot of variety in this list here. Right off the bat, I want to start off with the matches that I think Fulgore has complete advantage in, and I really don't see myself ever losing a tournament set against these characters. Pretty much off the bat, General Rom, probably the easiest character in the game to zone. Fulgore doesn't have to commit to much. Run away, throw fireballs. If you can react with DP after you throw a fireball, congratulations, you win the matchup. That's all it takes. That matchup is pretty free for Fulgore these days. Back in the day, maybe I had a little bit of trouble with it. But I never actually ended up losing to this character in bracket, I don't think. I think he's the only character in the entire cast I have never lost to in a tournament set. So there you go. That's my first matchup that I think is really, really bad. Fulgore dominates that one. Another 7-3 that comes to mind right here, Kan-Ra. Kan-Ra really has never had a good track record against Fulgore. He's always kind of struggled, and Fulgore just rushes him down at the start of the match and dominates him in neutral. Shadow Blade Dash being projectile immune and throw immune. Absolutely dominate all of his projectiles. Dominates his clutch command grab. It's just super cheap. And I really feel like Kan-Ra doesn't have a lot of great options against Fulgore. If he can grab Fulgore and get the curse on him early, then it's kind of doable. That's where the 3 comes in, I suppose. But other than that, Fulgore just absolutely mauls Kan-Ra. One more matchup I'm going to put in the 7-3 category is actually Arbiter. Arbiter, for the same reasons as Kan-Ra, having the Shadow Blade Dash go right through all the projectiles like the grenade and the bullets, and then being able to use it against Prophet's Bane, the command grab as well. Really, really strong. He pressures him just the same. No wake-up options for this character, just like Kan-Ra, and it's very hard for Arbiter to press stuff. Blade Dash is such an oppressive tool against these type of characters where they can't really counter-poke Fulgore in a way that's advantageous for them, and they can't really just get their game plan started. Fulgore's frame data is just superior in every way, and then he just vortexes them to death, and that's just bad for the character overall. So Fulgore really should never lose to these characters, in my opinion. Another character that I believe ends up in the 7-3 category, believe it or not, is actually going to be Cinder. Cinder doesn't have a lot of great options against Fulgore, in my opinion, either. Trailblazer is kind of whack against Fulgore. He can just DP through all of Cinder's gaps, and I really feel like if Fulgore's playing on point, Cinder doesn't have a lot of great options. I really don't even know what Cinder's game plan is supposed to be against Fulgore. I can't even figure one out. I have lost to Taizo in tournament before, and I think that makes him a god. I also feel like I haven't played the matchup against a good Cinder in a long time, so I don't know, maybe it's changed, but I've always felt comfortable against this character. I've only ever lost against the character in tournament once, and I really don't feel like he's that threatening these days overall. I'm just going to be honest, Cinder's on the lower end of my list these days. One last character I want to add to the 7-3 list is going to be Hisako. It's taken me some thought to determine whether or not it was going to be a 6-4 or a 7-3, but I haven't thought about at all whether or not she actually loses the matchup because I'm pretty positive of it. She just has a hard time getting in on Fulgore. She can't really get started. Medium Laser is the god move against Hisako, and if she ever tries to jump, then as long as you have 1 pip, which you're Fulgore and you probably have 1 pip, you just DP at any time and you get her out of the air, and then it leaves you plus. So you're just never at a situation where Hisako can really do anything. Make sure you have your meaty timing down so you don't get hit by stupid stuff like Wake Up Influence and meatying with fireballs and low laser. What's she supposed to do? All right, moving on to the matchups that I think are still winnable for Fulgore, but I think the other side, the opposition, has a chance to win. I want to start with the top tiers that I think that Fulgore beats. Right off the bat, the big boy Aganos. This dude on everybody's radar is one of the best characters in the game, and I agree. This character completely locks down, shuts down, and nullifies certain characters, but Fulgore is not one of them. Fulgore can kind of just set up shop at the start of the round, get away from Aganos if he needs to, he can stay close if he wants to, and using stuff like Sweep and Destroy and the back heavy punch overhead completely ignores chunks. 1 hits overhead and 1 hits low, and then when Fulgore goes invisible, you kind of just have to guess. So the thing is, chunks don't really matter to Fulgore. If he doesn't have the chunks, great, I'll pressure him as normal. But if not, I'm just going to look for a setup into a hard knockdown ender or even a quick rise, whatever, soft knockdown, and then just go straight into the overhead low mix. It's just that simple. And when I'm invisible, it's even harder to deal with. That's all it takes. Make your combos nice and short when he has chunks so you can keep looping that situation over and over, and Aghanos is just gonna fall apart. Another top tier that I think Fulgore does very well against is actually Arya. So Arya is widely regarded as like top 2, right behind Rash. I think Fulgore handles her. I think he fights her pretty well. If she gets started early on with booster body, just like any other character, Arya does what she does. But the big issue for Arya is Blade Dash. Light Blade Dash in particular. She has a hard time counter poking it because of her slow medium buttons, and her light buttons are very stubby, usually outside of the range where she can actually connect with them after blocking a Blade Dash, as long as it's not point blank, and Fulgore can just immediately counter poke with Crouch Jab. So light Blade Dash into Crouch Jab is very annoying for Arya to deal with, and that's kind of how Fulgore gets his easy confirms into hard knockdown. So he's just very much looking for that one hit off of that Blade Dash, and she has a hard time even counter poking it if she blocks it. So it can be a very oppressive tool for Arya to deal with, and I think that's more than enough of a reason for her to lose the matchup ever so slightly. Another really strong character that I think Fulgore straight up beats is Aiba. Oh man, Aiba is a 6'4". Why? Well, the warrior form gets zoned, kind of very similar to General Ram in my opinion. He can get in a little bit easier, maybe. He's got that crazy jump arc, but Fulgore still has the tools to deal with warrior form very well. And then in the mage form, he can just rush him down the same way he does Conra or Arbiter. It's very similar to that, where Fulgore gets up in his face, oppresses him, and mage form kind of just suffers. And he also has moves like the teleport and the shadow teleport to deal with the projectile game, and then I can get a grab in and then start my mix. And then mage form is like, shit, I shouldn't have done that. So Fulgore, all in all, I think is a really good pick against Idol. If Idol gets both of his instincts per game, he can get the dub ski. I think he can lock down Fulgore just like he can lock down most characters, but he still has a lot of tools to look out for, and Fulgore just oppresses him to death. It's just really, really tough for Idol to get started in neutral, in my opinion. Another high tier character that I'm going to put on the 6'4" list is going to be Tusk. Now, Tusk is a character that is known for not being zoned by anybody. I think that's false. I think Fulgore does a pretty good job of zoning Tusk because he's kind of forced to not use the dash. If he uses the dash, he's usually going to get hit by the medium laser. The medium laser is the bane of Tusk's existence, and I really feel like the blade dash can be problematic because of that as well. Canceling a fireball or a laser into a blade dash to get those confirms. It makes neutral very easy for Fulgore against a lot of characters, and Tusk is one of them. You can't deflect a projectile, my friend. That's probably the main reason right there. Also, the extended hurt box on the jump medium punch, being able to anti-air that with DP, that's a huge advantage for Fulgore too. If it was disjointed and I had to hold that, maybe it'd be a different matchup, but I think just not having a great way in makes it difficult for Tusk. If he does manage to get in and he actually gets me cornered, he can get some huge damage. Tusk obviously is never out of the fight. I don't think any character hard counters him, but I do think it can be tough for Tusk at times. Another very strong character I'm going to put in the 6'4" category is Glacius. Glacius is a weird one because if he does manage to get the hit, yeah, it's just like Tusk. He takes a lot of damage and Fulgore is going to have a bad time. But Fulgore has an answer for everything. He can zone really, really well in this matchup because of Glacius' terrible walk speed. It forces him to do things like jump, and if he jumps, I can always just blade dash DP him out of the air, or just blade dash is sometimes good enough. Or it's going to force him to cold shoulder his way in, which I just get free whiff punishes on because Fulgore is just usually all the way out of range and I can backdash it and punish it. I don't think it's impossible for Glacius to win this matchup. I do think that if he corners, Fulgore, it can be very problematic. But having something like Shadow Teleport to get out of the corner at any time makes Glacius have to think twice about his offense, and I think that's very scary for him. Not an impossible matchup, not a great one either. There's going to be a few more characters on this list. Maybe they're not exactly top tier, but I do definitely think they lose to Fulgore. We're going to start with some of the weaker ones. So right here, we're going to take a look at Jago. Jago has canonically lost to Fulgore, and I have canonically lost to Jago. Why? Because I'm trash. These days, I think that Fulgore wins the matchup pretty easily. He can punish Wind Kick with DP every single time because heavy DP is busted with Fulgore. The hitbox on that thing is crazy. He can zone Jago very well, and having access to the teleport and stuff like Shadow Blade Dash, it's all the same stuff. You guys are going to see a pattern here. It's almost like Fulgore's a really strong character. But just for all those reasons alone, it's pretty hard for Jago to get Fulgore in that sweet spot where he locks him down perfectly. I think that Fulgore has all the advantages he needs against Jago, and if he makes a mistake, it's kind of on Fulgore. It's kind of on the player. Another matchup that I think that deserves to be here personally is Gargos Gargos gets rushed down very similarly to Arbiter and Conra, but I think it's a 6-4, not a 7-3, because of the fact that Gargos has stuff like the minions to help him out once he can start to get rid of those pips. I think that's a pretty strong strategy for Gargos in the matchups, to land the grab, the command grab, and start taking the pips away from him. That's really, really strong against Fulgore. And having the 4 jumps can be very, particularly hard for Fulgore to anti-air sometimes, but otherwise, if Fulgore doesn't let him do any of that, he just mauls Gargos on Wake Up, and he can just rush him down and lock him down. He deals with the Instinct very well because of moves like Forward Heavy Punch and Sweep, so he doesn't really fear the Hyper Armor too much. And just because of the fact that he has a DP, he can anti-air Gargos if he needs to. He can deal with the medium Reckoning Mind game. Some characters can't, and Fulgore overall just plays the neutral very well against Gargos. Gargos does have options, but maybe not quite enough. There's going to be quite a few more characters that we're putting on this side of the list. I think one of them is Eagle. I do think Fulgore has advantage in this matchup. He can deal with a lot of the weird setups that Eagle uses to knock down his opponent and just lock him down. I think Fulgore gets through that very well with, of course, his DP and his Shadow Blade dash. We saw that in the Eagle guide with Jago, of course, but, very similar concept there. I do think that he fights him in neutral really well. Dealing with the arrows, you kind of just have to be patient a little bit and just wait for him to come to you, because him shooting arrows at you just means he's running out of his resource, and then what's Eagle supposed to do? So I kind of just wait out the arrows, wait for him to make a mistake in neutral, and then just capitalize on it, and just maul his Wake Up. That's pretty much all it takes. I don't think that Eagle is a bad character, per se. I think he's maybe somewhere in the middle of the pack these days, and I do think that Fulgore does have advantage over him. Another character that I think Fulgore just straight out beats in a 6-4 matchup is going to be Orchid. I've always thought this. I always felt like Fulgore had the upper hand. The medium laser, pretty much the main reason here. That medium laser is really tricky for Orchid to deal with. She doesn't really have a great way around it. She can't slide under it. She can't use Shadow Fire Cat on Wake Up to get through it if it's a meaty, because that move is not projectile immune on Wake Up. And it's just not a great move overall. Kind of trash in comparison to some other Shadow Projectile immune moves because of the fact that it doesn't have that same invincibility on startup. So there's really not too many good ways to deal with medium laser for Orchid. Obviously she can't jump. Jumping at Fulgore with at least 1 pip is kind of suicide in my opinion, so it's just really rough. I think that Orchid has trouble in the matchup overall. Gonna be a few more characters in the 6-4 category here. So we got TJ combo going in as well. TJ doesn't really get zoned, but I do think that Fulgore has all the tools to rush TJ down and oppress him. He doesn't have a great reversal option besides the Shadow Uppercut, which Fulgore can easily bait out, and I do think he locks him down better than most of the casts can. I do think that TJ can be a little slippery at times, especially when he's in Instinct. He becomes super fast, but I think Fulgore has all the tools to deal with that, and I think that if he gets his Vortex started, TJ's going to have a hard time. Also having an answer to punishing Powerline with the heavy DP, it's really, really good. He just negates a lot of what TJ likes to do. I think if TJ can get started and he can start mixing, I think that it's not impossible, but it's definitely hard for TJ. Some other characters that are going to fall in here are on the lower end of my list. We're going to put Kim Woo in there as well. Kim Woo, I think, has good options with the parry, but I think being able to bait it out so easily with Fulgore gets a lot of free openings. So I really feel like Kim was almost supposed to be designed to do well against Fulgore, and she ended up just not in the long run. I really thought she was going to be the Fulgore killer back in the beginning of Season 3, and she's just not. Fulgore can rush her down really well. The strike throw game is in Fulgore's favor, in my opinion. He can DP through all the gaps in her pressure. If she ever tries to Dragon Cancel in the air, I can just DP that as well. It's just really hard for her to get started in footsies and neutral, and she just has a hard time in general with all of Fulgore's oppressive tools. It's not really a fun matchup for Kim Woo. Sonic Dolphin, I'm sorry, dude. Another matchup I'm going to put here in 6-4 is Shin Hisako. If Shin Hisako gets the mix started against Fulgore, sure, it can be terrifying, but the thing is, it kind of should never happen in the first place if Fulgore is playing on point, because she can get zoned out pretty easily, in my opinion. It just takes a little bit of understanding her patterns in her approach and her movement options. Her dash is a big issue in this matchup because it's just like a jump, so she doesn't get to dash in the same way that a lot of other characters do, so it's really hard for her to get in at times. Also, Fulgore having options to deal with the orb, like Shadow Teleport, of course, to completely go past it and get to the other side. It makes Shin Hisako have to change the way she approaches her offense on his Wake Up. So that can be really annoying for a Shin Hisako player, because they lose some of their mix for doing that. They go out of their way to cover options, and then it's actually not as hard to block usually. Another character I'm going to put here in the 6-4 category is Cinder. I've historically always hated Cinder, and I think I always will. I think that's my personal bias against the character, but I do think Fulgore has advantages. He can DP her out of the air from a lot of those crazy air setups, and I do think he can lock down her wake up pretty well if you know what you're doing. Otherwise, she's just going to low profile you with crouching light kick, and all of your plus frames are going to be gone because her hurt boxes are kind of funky. But other than that, if you know what you're doing against Cinder, you can lock her down very well, and she's going to have a hard time overall. She doesn't have a great wake up option, and she kind of just gets smothered. All you have to do is that when she has instinct, you got to kind of like get away from her and start, flooding the screen with projectiles so that you could force her to jump over or web cling over, DP her out of the air, and that's pretty much it. She doesn't have a great way in my opinion. However, if she does get the hit and she has instinct, Cinder does what Cinder does. Robbery. I am putting one last character in the 6-4 category. It's going to be Saberwolf. Saberwolf is a character I've historically always done bad against, and I hate this character, and I think I always will. Him and Cinder will give me the PTSD that I have from Season 1, where I just hated dealing with those characters, and I think I always will hate dealing with those characters. But I do think Fulgore has slight advantage over both of them. Saberwolf, you're going on the list too. He has a hard time getting in. He can have a hard time getting in anyway. He can slide under projectiles, sure, but that's what medium laser's for. He can leap over the medium laser with the overhead, but I also have a DP. So in theory, Fulgore should be able to do everything that he needs to do to stop Wolf, but Wolf kind of has like these tricky little answers to everything, like sliding under projectiles at the right time before I get the chance to throw the laser. Like, it could happen. Jumping over the projectiles, like the laser and the fireball with the leaping slash, and then the dive kick too to change his jump arc. Stuff like that you kind of have to be really creative with Fulgore to get in, and I think we've seen some Wolf players in the past use that really well against me. Roman does it really well, and I think that if Fulgore can knock Wolf down, he shouldn't commit to zoning. I think he should mix him. I think he should take advantage of the fact that Wolf doesn't have great wake-up options, and as long as your meaties are on point and you don't get hit with something dumb like Light Eclipse, or you don't get thrown out of your pressure, you'll always be able to mix this character to death, whether he has instinct or not. You should always be able to lock Wolf down pretty efficiently. So I am going to put him in the 6-4 category, but it's not by much. So right off the bat, before we finish this list, look at how many characters I personally think Fulgore beats. Now, have I ever lost to any of these characters in tournament? Of course, I've lost to like almost every single one of them in tournament, because it's still possible. They're not 10-0 matchups, 9-1s, 8-2s even. Even a 7-3, as bad as they can be, I've still lost to all those characters before. Maybe I didn't have the knowledge I needed then. Maybe I didn't play as good that day. There is still always a chance that these characters can win, and I think that's why matchups are such a interesting topic, because people think like, oh, 7-3, that's unwinnable. It isn't unwinnable depending on the player, depending on the situation. I think it's happened to the best of us. I think some of us have played matchups that we thought we were going to win because of the characters we've picked, and we just didn't. It just happens. Fighting games are fighting games. But these are the numbers, and these are like the scientific on-paper things, right? So we can't always go by that. We just gotta go by what's on the screen and what's happening on the game. That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. This is just a rule of thumb. With that said, let's get into the matchups that I think are even for Fulgore. I'm going to start with Thunder. I do think that Thunder has a hard time getting in on some characters, but I do think it could be a little tricky for Fulgore, keeping him out. It requires like really high precision on anti-airing, maybe like a full screen drop kick or a full screen stomp, and you have to kind of know what side he's going to be on if he stomps too, so it can be really tricky for Fulgore to deal with that. Also at round start, which is a very important part of every matchup, Thunder just gets up in Fulgore's face, and Fulgore has to deal with Thunder being up close. It's very similar to Saberwolf and a few other characters that Fulgore likes to keep out, but Thunder gets in, and you kind of have to deal with that at round start. So whoever gets the first hit kind of has the momentum for the rest of that life bar. It's a very momentum heavy matchup, and I think that Thunder has everything that he needs to deal with Fulgore and just lock him down. Another character I'm putting in the even category is Rash, the best character in the game. These guys go to war with each other. Two top tier characters just swinging with big moves. We got wrecking balls and battering rams and blade dashes and DPs. Oh my. This matchup's a lot of fun, and the last time I played it with Alex V, it came down to the wire. I don't think it's impossible for Fulgore to win. I don't think it's impossible for Rash to win. I think it's right in the middle. I think they're both broken in unique ways, and having things like Wrecking Ball and Invisible Teleports, it makes for a very chaotic matchup, and I really don't see any advantages on either side. I think each character has advantages that they can use against each other to kind of mess each other up. Like Fulgore really can lock down Rash really well and maul his wake up, but I also feel like Rash having stuff like Meaty Light Boot and Cross Up Down Tongue and Wrecking Ball can really be problematic for Fulgore at times, so I do think that the matchup is even because of that. The next character that I think belongs in this list is going to be Kilgore. You guys have seen me do battle with Kilgore with Sonic Dolphin so many times, and despite my good track record against this character, I do think it's an even matchup. I do think that Kilgore has everything that he needs in this matchup to deal with Fulgore. I think he can lock him down well. I think the strike throw game is really strong. I think despite not having a great blender, like good 50-50s, I think his Vortex can be very scary when he's in Instinct because of how much potential damage he builds up. And then just finding those hits with Fulgore because they have such similar tools in their neutral set because he's literally got most of Fulgore's buttons despite some frame data differences. I think he has everything what he needs to fight Fulgore. It's very similar to like almost like a Fulgore mirror, but a little altered. It's a very strange, peculiar matchup that I don't see either character really winning. This is going to be a hot take here, but I personally believe Riptor versus Fulgore is even. Now, a lot of people are going to say, why do you think that? And all the Riptor players are probably losing their mind right now because I know how y'all think. But having played Riptor extensively for the past, like, 6+ months, I really understand this character's game plan, and I feel very comfortable with Riptor. And I feel like I could beat any Fulgore with my Riptor, so take that challenge and do whatever you want with it. Anyways, Riptor at round start, Fulgore has to deal with her. She's not getting zoned at round start. He's got to fight her up close, just like Thunder or Wolf or any of these other Rushdown characters that Fulgore's trying to keep out. Jago, TJ, the list goes on. Now, with that said, Riptor has some of the best up-close options in the game between her normals, her throw. She just got really fast buttons that Fulgore kind of just has to deal with. And having access to stuff like Light Shoulder, which is 6 frames, Fulgore has to deal with it. It's faster than Blade Dash, and it has the same priority, so it's going to beat it every time as long as it's in range. And I think that's really strong for Riptor. Another thing that's also strong for her in that matchup is the fact that off of any hard knockdown, she can cover all of Fulgore's wake-up options with Flame Carpet into Heavy Shoulder. Off of any hard knockdown. That's so insane. It stops the DP. It stops Wake-Up Backdash. It stops Shadow Teleport because the Flame Carpet is there waiting for him. So she can cover all of his wake-up options. It's not hard. It's actually really easy to abuse Fulgore's Wake Up with Riptor. Now, with that said, I think it's even because Fulgore has everything that he needs to Vortex the crap out of Riptor, and stuff like Zoning and Medium Laser is still very strong against the character. I don't see her losing to it, though. I think that she can deal with it. I think she can fight against it really well. I think having options like her crazy long-range sweep and her stand heavy kick kind of have to keep Fulgore on his toes a little bit. He can't just like go willy-nilly with Blade Dash all the time. Sometimes he'll just get hit out of it, and I think that she just has everything that she needs to fight the character. I don't think it's bad for Riptor. Fight me. And of course, for the meme, yeah, Fulgore versus Fulgore is 5-5. It's a mirror match. that doesn't need any explanation. What might need some explanation, though, is the losing matchups, and you see quite a few characters still on the screen, right? So here we go. First one that I think is slightly going to be disadvantaged to Fulgore is actually Maya. Maya, in my opinion, can be annoying for Fulgore at times because he has a hard time anti-airing her because of the jump daggers, and her dagger pressure up close can be really just... It's hard for Fulgore to take a turn a lot of the times. He's got to make some hard callouts because her mobility is just so crazy. She could just run and dash at any time, and it's super hard to react to. She doesn't get zoned, and he really has to like lock her down if he gets the hit because she doesn't have great wake-up options, but her neutral is incredibly taxing for Fulgore, and I think it's always been kind of a little weird to play around her chaotic neutral. She's all over the place. You don't see a lot of Mayas these days, but I think if you did, I don't know, I think she'd be getting some good results. I think this character is very underrated. I think she's very strong, and despite having a really linear game plan, I think it's super effective, and I think slight advantage over Fulgore is where she belongs personally. Believe it or not, I think her sister does just as well. So this is another hot take. This is a new opinion of mine, and as you guys know, I'm also a Mira master. I do kind of believe that Mira kind of has a little bit of an advantage over Fulgore, and I think it's all because of the same reasons as Maya. It's very tricky to anti-air this character. She can lock Fulgore down really well with bats, and if Fulgore doesn't get started at round start to get those juicy pips to get the ability to DP out of all of his special moves, it can be very difficult for Fulgore to get started, and I think Mira locks him down better than almost anyone in the cast. The left-right mix-ups are scary. He just has a hard time overall. He's got to really get started early if he wants to make something happen. And Mira's a very slippery character. So I do put this as one of her winning matchups, ever so slightly. Another character I'm giving slight advantage to, and I know this is going to be a hot topic, is Spinal. Everybody and their brother is going to hate this opinion, and I know every Spinal player in the world is going to be like, you're wrong, and here's why: X, Y, Z, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, R, E, S, P, E, C, T. Here's my opinion. These characters both do the exact same thing. The exact same thing. It's literally the same vortex. The only difference is that Fulgore's teleport isn't invincible, but he stays invisible. And Spinal's teleport is invincible, but you can see where he's going. That's literally the only difference. They have very similar damage output. I would say maybe Spinal's is a little heavier, but they have the same mix. It's the same thing. The left-right teleport, high-low throw game. And what they get off throw is both really, really good. Maybe Fulgore's forward throw is better than Spinal's forward throw. But if Spinal gets the back throw, he gets crazy mix-up options. Then we get to the actual vortex itself. You know, Fulgore does whatever he does to Spinal like he does the rest of the cast. Fulgore can still mix up Spinal really well. The issue is, when Spinal starts mixing Fulgore, he's landing these Searing Skulls, and they stop the flow of pips. And if I'm not building pips, how am I supposed to do any of my Fulgore things? I can't pip cancel, which means I am losing one of my biggest tools as a character. So he is denying a tool. He's literally denying what the character does. So that is why I put this as a slightly losing matchup. It is only because of the resource game. Fulgore is the only character that doesn't build resources the same as everybody else. So when Spinal does what he does, very similarly to like Gargos, when he gets to steal my pips, he just stops the flow of them completely. So I'm not building anything as long as I'm getting mixed. And Fulgore has great mix, and Spinal has great mix. So I'm gonna get hit at some point, right? It's just the nature of the matchup. So I don't think it's impossible for Fulgore to win this, but I do think slight disadvantage has to go towards Fulgore in this matchup because of the fact that his resources completely stop growing, and he needs his resources to do what he does as a character, to function. That is his main function, is the pip cancels. Is he still strong without them? Yes, but you are taking my resources away. I think a losing matchup comes down to either it's too oppressive for the character's toolset to deal with, or the character that wins is hindering my toolset in some way or another, and that's kind of the remainder of what's left on this list here. Spinal stopping the flow of instinct and stopping the pips from being generated is the sole reason. Following that, with that said, for the exact same reason, I gotta put Shadow Jago as slightly losing. I think that Fulgore can handle the neutral kind of well. I think he has options for everything that Shago does in neutral, but the mix, it's very similar. The left, right, high, low. Shago doesn't have the same exact vortex as Fulgore, but it's kind of what the character just does. Dash through DP, dash through throw, surge dive kick, and then there's a mind game behind that. There's just so many different things that you have to, keep in mind with Shago. And you can lock him down. His DP's not great, so you have different ways to cover his wake-up options, and Fulgore does that very well. But when Shadow Jago gets Instinct, he just uses my meter. He takes away my pips. It's the exact same thing. A good Shago player will use his Instinct not for annihilation, but to take all my resources and fill the screen with, I don't know, Shadow Shendo Kukins or something. He's gonna find a way to spend my meter, and I can't get it back unless I build it back. He's using my meter for his tools. It's the exact same thing. He's taking away my main resource, and like I said with Spinal, it's not impossible for Fulgore to win this matchup. It's very slightly disadvantageous because of the fact that it's messing with my tool set. It's taking away from what the character is meant to do. And that's all it is. That's all it is. There's no other disadvantage besides that. I believe that for Spinal, and I believe that for Shago. And of course, we see this one column here at the bottom, the 4-6 category. This is the only hard matchup that I think Fulgore has. This is his hardest matchup, and it's Omen. Why? Because, one, he does exactly what Spinal and what Shadow Jago does. He stops my meter from being used by locking it out when he's in Instinct, by hitting me with projectiles of any kind, or by just using a Demon Loop on a lockout. He can lock my meter out so I can't use my Shadow moves. I can still pip cancel sometimes, but it doesn't always let me use my Shadow moves. So of course, he is hindering my toolset in one way or another. So it really depends on how many times he locks me out and how much meter I have, but all in all, he is still effectively locking out my meter and hindering my toolset. 2, this character actually beats Fulgore in the neutral. I am convinced. His ground buttons are better. He doesn't really have to worry about Fulgore's pressure on his wake up because of stuff like Shadow Form, and Light Orda is actually mad good against Fulgore. I've only ever found one thing that really kind of beats it clean, which is Crouching Medium Punch, and it only works in the corner, where it'll just, like, if I'm point blank, it'll whiff completely over Fulgore's head, and then I can beat Omen with that. But other than that, I only get that in the corner, where, I mean, I have to get him there first. And Omen, I think, just has better buttons in neutral. I'm just going to say it. I think his buttons are crazy. I think having access to 6-frame buttons is never a bad thing, and Omen has some. I think this character just straight up beats Fulgore. Left, right in the air, super hard to anti-air. I've got to make crazy reads like DPing after I block a jump in. It's just not a fun matchup, and I have never enjoyed it. I think that Omen has everything that he needs to beat Fulgore, and I won't ever like this matchup. I'll never be convinced that it's even. I just don't see it. Between him stopping my meter from being used and then also winning the neutral on the ground, I don't see a good strategy for Fulgore in this matchup at all. It's tough. It's really tough. If I get started, I can maybe start to safe jump him a little bit, but then I start losing some of my mix. I don't know. I don't even know if I believe this is a 4-6 at this point. Maybe it's worse, but for all intents and purposes, I'm putting in 4-6 for now. Omen, I hate you so much. And here you go, folks. That is my Fulgore matchup chart. A couple of hot takes in there. I know you guys are going to dispute some of the bad matchups there because, of course, you guys do. You guys think that Fulgore is the easiest character in the game to play and anybody can use him, which by all means, go ahead and use him yourself. See how you do. But, you know, it is what it is. With my almost 9 years of expertise and however many years of playing Season 3, this is the list I've come up with. I think having as many winning matchups as Fulgore does pretty much solidifies his spot as a top 5, easily top 3 character. I know some people are going to argue top 2 or top 1. That's fine. You guys are free to debate that. I don't think his matchup chart looks better than Arya's, and I don't think it looks better than Rash's, and I think that's the reason why he's number 3. That's my opinion. And here you go. There's your tier list. There's your matchup chart. You happy? So this is for the 2 years of my content creation spree. Thank you guys so much for supporting. I'm going to keep making content. I'm going to keep streaming. I'm going to keep making YouTube videos. I'm going to keep hosting tournaments. And I'm going to keep supporting Killer Instinct. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support these past 2 years. You guys have been awesome. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much.